the pieces that you can do today to proactively put your hormones back together and create balance and homeostasis in the body. So a lot of them we've already talked about, so I'll just go through them quickly. But PUZZLE is an acronym, and it stands for P, proper whole food nutrition; U, understanding supplements; Z is zapping stress; Z or Z's, sleep; L is love and encouragement; E is exercise and environment. So these are all the pieces that you can work on today to put your hormone puzzle back together. Whether you have diabetes or not, whether you're reproductive years, perimenopause, menopause, it applies to everybody.
Welcome to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. My name is Melissa Slemp, a certified nutritional health coach and the founder and CEO of Abundant Health with Melissa, where I help women with type 1 diabetes to feel more empowered and live their best life despite their diagnosis. Each week, I will bring conversations and strategies from guest experts and my experience living with type 1 for over 40 years now. So if you're a woman ready to redefine how diabetes can look and feel for you, then the Type 1 and Midlife podcast is the show for you. In today's episode, I'm excited to talk with Dr. Kela Smith. She's a renowned holistic integrative fertility and hormone doctor with extensive expertise in natural and holistic medicine. Dr. Kela guides women and couples on their journey towards optimal fertility, hormone balance, and overall well-being. In this enlightening podcast, Dr. Kela shares her knowledge gained from over 25 years of experience in integrative health as the founder of the Hormone Puzzle Society and Fertility Coach University. She has dedicated herself to helping individuals to alleviate symptoms of hormone imbalance. Dr. Kela takes us on a fascinating exploration of the intricate world of hormones and their fluctuations throughout the menstrual cycle. Discover the significance of tracking your cycles and gain valuable insights into the stages of hormones during perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. She also delves into the crucial role of testosterone within the realm of androgens. For our listeners here living with type 1 diabetes, she explores the early signs of insulin resistance that can manifest in our 40s and addresses the emotional aspects of living with diabetes. She sheds light into hormone replacement therapy for individuals with type 1 diabetes. So listen in as Dr. Kela provides us important insights on the symptoms we can expect during perimenopause and menopause and beyond. Hope you enjoy. Just a reminder that nothing you hear on this Type 1 and Midlife podcast should be a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your medical professional before changing your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Well, hello. I'm so excited to be here today. Today we're welcoming Dr. Kela Smith, and she is joining us today. We're going to just unpack balancing hormones with while we're managing diabetes, which, sometimes we think the two things don't involve one another, but they definitely do, especially when we reach 40 plus in age. So hello, Dr. Kela, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I've been following you and I really love what you do, just giving so much value, not only integrative health, because I'm a big proponent of that, because that's what I studied as well. And, the multiple books, and you're an expert on fertility, hormones, and pregnancy, as well as 7 distinct online courses. Wow. And you're going to have a chance to share today about your own podcast. It's called the Hormone Puzzle podcast. And you also have, I believe, a course on this too.
I do. Yes. I have multiple courses. Yeah.
It's really a really good thing. And, it pertains to different women at different times. So today, with your help, our listeners want to discover, again, most of our listeners are midlife women with type 1 diabetes, to put together their own pieces to their hormone puzzle, which I'm excited to learn more about all of this. So first, can we start with the different stages of the reproductive cycle? And because, I learned, and I shared with you before we hit record today, briefly, but I'll expand on that as we talk, is this was not something we were taught growing up and through my own reproductive years about how all the different hormones impact one another. And it's so easy to just say, well, it's just another day, it's just another month, this is the way it's supposed to feel, not knowing that there's always an underlying reason. Right?
For sure.
Yeah. And I remember studying too. I went to IIN, so that for who is unfamiliar is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I also went on to study the hormone health end of it, which is how I've been able to kind of dial into, again, diabetes and insulin is a hormone. So insulin is a hormone, just like the other hormones we're going to talk about today. But how connected it is. So I was thankful to go through that program. I only wished I had gone through it when I was in my 20s, right? Because we can't repeat what we didn't do. But it's nice that we have a space with the courses and the online presence and podcasts that you have as well, where we can really deliver some really good sound advice to support women. So yeah, we really appreciate that. So what got you into this?
So I struggled with infertility. I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. Don't you just love that one? When I was 36, and I was told because of my age, which was my only factor, that I would need to do IUI. And if that didn't work, I would need to do IVF. And that just didn't sit well with me. I thought there's nothing medically wrong with me. My body should know how to reproduce. Then I was going to figure out how to make that happen. And so that's what I did. I dove into research. It was like, what do I need to be eating? What does my lifestyle need to do? How do I balance my hormones? And I figured it out, and I was able to get pregnant not once, but twice. I had my last baby at 40. And then at 40 with a newborn and a 2-year-old, I went back to school and dove into Holistic-Integrative health, and I haven't stopped since. I ended with my PhD in natural medicine. So that's my journey. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. And we need more people, doctors and women like you helping us. Even in my small town, I live here in Northeast Florida. And I'm just noticing within my own community, it's a lot of these women are coming to me for just help with blood sugar and just trying to get their metabolic health. But there's that connection too with just the reproductive, trying to understand what's going on as they're getting older. And blood sugar does tend to be one of those things that does change. And so can you explain, and there's been a lot of, I'm seeing more information out there, which I'm real excited about, of where there is theory and good sound proof that throughout our monthly menstrual cycle, that things do happen, or I should say insulin sensitivity does happen during those stages. Can you explain with us, kind of draw us a visual that we can just kind of picture about those different times of a woman's cycle and what is going on with the production of insulin?
Sure. So I break the cycle into 4, which I know some practitioners do, but so I'm going to go through those 4 phases, and I'll kind of talk through how the hormones are fluctuating. But so the first day that you see any blood, I count that as your menstruation phase. This is when you're actually on your period. You're shedding the lining of your uterus. So if you're in perimenopause, this might be getting a little spotty at this point, but it's still coming. As we go into menopause, obviously that's when that stops happening. But so that's the usually about day 1 through 5 is a typical period. This is when your hormones are pretty low, especially your estrogen and progesterone. Your energy might be a little low. You might want to kind of turn into yourself and do more calming things, more relaxation things. and when the hormones are low, that's going to affect your insulin, especially whenever you eat. Every time you eat, your body's going to release insulin. And the more the hormones are a little lower, the more sensitive your body's going to be to that insulin. And we'll get into some meal timing in a minute. Every time you eat, your body releases insulin. If it does it too often, it might cause you to become insulin resistant, where you can't, your body can't, cells can't take in that insulin anymore. So that's the period stage, the menstruation phase. And then as we go into about day 6 and we're not bleeding anymore, we're now in our follicular phase. And so this usually goes from about day 6 to about 14 or so of a 28-day cycle. And so this is when the hormones are starting to rise, especially estrogen and progesterone. You're starting to come up that ladder. The LH is starting to go up as you head into ovulation. The insulin again is starting to come up a little bit. And we were talking earlier, as this is happening, your body is more and more sensitive to the insulin, and it kind of affects all these hormones. So follicular phase, you can stand a little bit more. Your body is going to not be as sensitive during this phase. You might do a harder workout. You might, you want to fuel your body with more like fresh foods, light foods, cooler foods, that kind of thing. And then as we get to stage 3, this is ovulation. If you're still ovulating, if you're not in perimenopause, if you're in an active cycle, this is when you're going to release an egg out of your follicle. That follicle is going to turn into something called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is going to release your progesterone. So your estrogen is still pretty high. Your progesterone starts to be released. And then as we do that and you ovulate, this is when you're at your peak. You are the most charismatic. You're the most active. You're the most, I always say, if you want somebody to buy what you're selling, do it during ovulation. If that's a speech or a program or a job interview, as a date, do it during ovulation, because you're going to be the most charismatic. Your hormones are at their peak. Then as we go into luteal phase and those hormones start to come back down, this is actually broken into 2 weeks. So this is the last 2 weeks before you start your period. The first week, your hormones are still pretty high. So you're coming off of that energy of your ovulation phase. As your hormones come down into that second week, that's right before your period. This is when your PMS symptoms will start to pop up. And this can show you, I always say this is can tell you how well you've lived your life throughout the whole month, because you'll have a lot of symptoms of hormone imbalance. You might have really bad PMS, PMDD, cramping, bloating, fatigue, all of those things that come with the PMS. That'll be worse if you haven't lived your life holistically throughout the whole month and balanced out your hormones. So that kind of, ends the cycle there. And again, as you're going into perimenopause, this might be a little bit more irregular, but these are a typical cycle of what you can experience if you are a cycling woman.
Yeah. That's really, that's a lot of really power-packed information. And I know, like, for instance, in your courses and even what you talk about on your podcast, and I'm sure you have some resources that we'll share here at the end, and we'll link it in the show notes, because it's good information. And, to look at it visually might even help women even more. I know I'm a visual learner, so it's like, okay, show me that cycle on a chart, and then I can better understand what the heck's going on with my body right now.
Sure. And
I appreciate you just kind of walking through that. That's incredible. Yeah. And, we as women, wouldn't you say the best thing for women to do, especially if they're having obvious issues, and maybe it's, to track not only their cycle, but tracking their symptoms.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
To know how many women don't track their cycles, don't know how to track their cycles. They don't know how long it is. They don't know last time it came. They don't know if they're ovulating, none of it. And that is all your support card. Like, that is a 5th vital sign. So track is the first step.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because as women with diabetes, with anybody living with diabetes, type 1, and the fact that, because we have to pump or inject insulin. So when you talk about insulin for somebody who doesn't have an autoimmune like type 1 diabetes, it's something, we're having to balance not only how we're feeling throughout our monthly cycle, but how that's going to affect insulin dosing.
Mhm.
So it's really helpful to track.
Yes.
I have a few clients that are a little bit younger, so they're still in their reproductive years. They're still, having their monthly periods, and they are starting to learn that is really going to start helping them, to start to put that on the map. And of course, there's so many handy apps now. There's so many different tools, right? You could do it manually with a piece of paper and pencil or whatever. I don't think it matters as long as you're kind of understanding, the information, and that you can share it with a doctor or someone like you that can kind of help interpret it. So yeah.
But I actually, one of my books is a cycle optimizing schedule book that is
Oh, perfect.
paper and pen scheduler that you can track cycle and tells you this is what I should be doing with nutrition and lifestyle and all of those places. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool. And then, just to tie it back to our lifestyle, because I'm, as a health coach, that's what I try to live and do myself. It's amazing how just the simple things, and I'm sure you can agree with this. It starts with those simple habits. So, that framework, and you'll probably laugh along with me, but one of the things that I always tend to start my clients on is hydration. Is something is silly. It sounds silly, but how impactful that is for so many of the different functions in the body. So we just work on getting that water intake up, really good quality water on a regular basis. And then obviously sleep, nutritious foods, reducing stress, having a lot of love in our life. All those things is what fuels our choices in the kitchen, not to mention, but also just how we feel and function. And that directly affects how our hormones are going to respond and how our monthly cycle, just like what you were saying, it definitely shows up in those areas. So, and we've been kind of told over the years, I know I did in my earlier years, and I can remember my mother, she always had a troublesome cycle. And I grew up just thinking that is what we're supposed to have to suffer with every month. Isn't that awful? It's just that I know it. It doesn't have to be something that you, that horror that we always, that stigma around the monthly cycle. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So it's really a shame.
Yeah. And you, like I said before, if your cycle is giving you symptoms like really terrible cramps, bloating, PMS, that's a sign that your body's saying something is wrong.
Something is wrong.
We need to fix this. So it's just normal. Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's optimal.
There you go. Exactly. Normal for you doesn't mean like it's
yes.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
And all those places that you just mentioned, with nutrition and sleep and stress and love and all of that are pieces of my hormone puzzle. So
I bet they are. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not easy. We know it's not easy. We don't put this stuff out there because we've got it nailed down either. It's been something I've had to work on for many years too. And then to go through more stages when you go through perimenopause and then now into postmenopause, it's ever changing. It seems like the stages of hormones are probably a little bit even more dramatic for women as opposed to men. I know they have their own hormonal fluctuations that goes on too as they're aging. Yeah.
Yeah. And some hormones that a lot of people don't think to pay attention to and what can apply to diabetes, it applies to perimenopause, menopause, all of it is our glucocorticoids, which are our stress hormones, our cortisol, our cortisone, our pregnancy, our adrenal gland function. So if it's not optimized, it's going to cascade down to every other hormone in your body. And so that piece is missed, and it's the key piece to optimizing the body.
Yeah. And it doesn't tend to be something doctors even ask about or put the pieces together or imagine even, getting tested for, because I know there's there's definitely testing that, to prove what's going on. Sometimes you don't even need a test. Sometimes you can just sit down and talk with somebody, right? And get an idea of what sounds like there might be some stress going on. There's some reactions that are going on. And, I think when they get a chance to talk through it, they can kind of better understand it as well, or, to kind of face it. It's hard, because life in general is hard. It's, it's just trying to find a way to kind of, to put better practices around it. But I think the first step is to recognize it.
Yes.
Yeah. To recognize that you're suffering and that you do need some help. So what about, I was thinking about the blood sugar and insulin. You mentioned it when you were going through the different cycles. And this is a general statement that I'm going to use that I learned, and it did seem to apply to what happened with me when I was hitting perimenopause. So I was late 40s, probably 48, 49 is when I really started to see the difference in the amount of insulin my body suddenly needed. So, and again, I had to do my own digging. Literally, I had to go through my own research, and I talked with a few other ladies that I know with type 1, and we kind of all put our head in our symptoms together, and we're like, well, maybe this is the fact. So then I went back and I did do some research, and I did uncover that, yes, this is what's happening. So when estrogen, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when estrogen drops, and this is happening during our reproductive years of cycle, our insulin sensitivity is also dropping.
Yes.
So our body requires more.
Mm-hmm.
So
as we head into perimenopause and menopause,
yes,
people think high estrogen is what causes all the symptoms. It's actually low estrogen, and it's the balance between estrogen and progesterone.
Progesterone, right? Yes. Well, I lived that. I get it. I can say, and I know I'm not the only one. So it was one of those good bad moments, because I was suddenly, because I take a basal insulin, which is a long-lasting 24-hour insulin, and my dosage went up by 50%. And I mean, within a month, it was gradual. It wasn't like I woke up one day and suddenly I needed almost twice as much. But I'm very in tune with my habits, and I'm just very in tune. And then it's like, suddenly, what is this? And I was frustrated. You're looking at things like, oh, okay, well, maybe my insulin is getting old. Maybe I didn't inject what I thought I injected. You second guess what you do, thinking it's something else. And then that's when I went on and I discovered that maybe it does have something to do with perimenopause, and it did. So I was happy that at least I knew what it was, right? At least I knew where to point it to. And it took time. I had to dial in my own lifestyle habits a little bit even closer, and just to kind of settle it down, do more yoga, do more stretching, drink less caffeine. You're probably agreeing with all of this. And yes, absolutely. And I actually, and maybe we can talk about this towards the end, but one of the, there's a lot of herbal treatments out there too. So I looked at some of those, and one of them was really working. And it was one of the things I was trying. I was seeing if this is what's, if this was going to help support me. And it did. And it did for a little while. And I kind of peaked a little bit. And then as a couple years went on, I noticed that same resistance was getting worse and worse. So, and then I went and got tested. And then, because as a diabetic, you're getting your blood work done all the time. So that's the good part about diabetes. You're always getting your numbers checked, which is good, because we have to learn from that information. But things like my vitamin D had plummeted, my B vitamins, my iron, my folate. I think that's the end of the list. I think that was enough. And then again, and you can speak into this, so what's happening with that all of a sudden? And I live in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. Although vitamin D is becoming epidemically low. That's turning into an epidemic. A lot of people having it. Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't realize, and what I like to do in my practice, is I like to test minerals. I do the H2MA testing. And so a lot of times low vitamin D is actually low magnesium. Intracellular, and it's a cofactor for your vitamin D. So I always tell people, if you've gotten blood work and it says low vitamin D, especially if you're in Florida, your body should might be that you have low magnesium. So
yes. And
yeah.
that's not a test that's often tested. It's almost like vitamin D. In most cases, you got to request to get that tested, which I think is crazy. But magnesium is really one you have to request. So you're right. So that was another missing piece, and I have since supplemented with that. So it is amazing. We got to pay attention to what's happening and to see where those kind of holes in the puzzle are, right? Those missing pieces, and to find a natural way to kind of fill it in. So, yeah.
And that's talking about testing. That's the other place that I love to run the Dutch test, because it shows that other side of the coin, how your body's using the hormones, how they're being detoxed and excreted, especially in perimenopause and menopause. If your hormones are already low and then your body's just not even detoxing, then that can cause a whole host of issues.
Yeah.
So doing some functional labs at every age is important.
It's important. Yeah. Yeah. I'm obviously a believer in that. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. So different symptoms. Do you know of, besides what we talked about with, when we're going through those hormonal stages, the perimenopause, the menopause, the hot flashes, that's the most talked about one, and how it affects our sleep. We're talking about one circle here, aren't we? Because these hormones, even magnesium, like when we're, because that's a relaxation mineral. So when that is low, it's going to affect our sleep.
Sure.
And it's definitely something that helps if we can supplement it at nighttime.
And make sure that you're doing the right magnesium supplement. We don't want citrate. That's going to give you diarrhea. If you are constipated, we want citrate.
Right. That's true.
Glycinate. I do a tri-magnesium that's really good. It has a couple
little bit of everything. Nice.
So
perfect. Yes.
Yeah, do that. Make sure you're doing the right dosing, so you're not underdosing, overdosing. Yeah. Super.
Yeah. So, and then do you know of any other specific maybe symptoms besides what I just kind of laid out with my own journey through, reaching menopause, that women with type 1 should expect and what they should be talking to their doctor about?
Yeah. So inability to lose weight if you're eating a clean, healthy diet, especially if you're getting weight that's accumulated in your middle. A lot of times it's almost like overnight you wake up and you have like this muffin top and you're like, where'd this come from? Like, what is this?
Yep. That was me. Yep.
And the insulin is so that's not normal. If just because you're getting older does not necessarily mean you're going to gain weight and not be able to lose it. You should be able to be fit and healthy at every age. So if you have that symptom, definitely, get that looked into. Also, I notice a lot of issues with like hair, skin, and nails. If you have always had, beautiful hair and, your skin's been beautiful and all of a sudden you're getting like dry skin or acne or you're losing your hair, a lot of times that's an issue with some hormones that need to be tweaked and fixed. Energy too. If you all of a sudden you're like, I'm so tired all the time. And a lot of times I'll have people say, well, I'm just getting older. This is what happens when you get older. No, if your hormones are working the way they should, then you should have energy at every age. You should,
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to seek out the answers and to not settle or to give in to age, right? Midlife is, we're in our prime.
Exactly.
On, ladies. It gets better from here.
We're the only culture that sees menopause as a bad thing. Many other cultures around the world, they call in China, it's called your second life, your new coming, your second beginning. So it's like something to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
And like doom and gloom. We're like, oh, you're done, you're in menopause.
Yeah. And, a lot of one of the topics that we're focusing a lot on just the emotional side of living with diabetes. So, and I know a lot of our listeners are newly diagnosed in later life. So these are women that I'm meeting and they're coming to me. Some are clients that getting diagnosed late 40s, 50s. It's really all over the place. It's no longer juvenile diabetes like it was for myself back in the day. And that adds to, so can you imagine being a woman coming up on perimenopause age, and then you're told you have a chronic disease? Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recommend that you sit with that. You recognize that that's a lot, but then also know that it's not a death sentence. It's not this isn't the end. If you do the things that you're learning on this show and what we're teaching, you can live with diabetes. And you're a prime example of that. You can thrive with diabetes at any age. So it does.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that starts with that mindset of like, this is not the end for me. I'm going to do what I can to optimize my body and be healthy and happy and, live the rest of my life with this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. Seek help. Yeah. Because the term "I can" should be part of so we should start the day with, right? What can I do today? What will I do today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons, again, I created the hormone puzzle, was because I wanted things I could do and be proactive in my health. And I knew a lot of stuff I can't control with infertility, but I could control what I was eating, what my sleep schedule was, how much I was working out, how much I was meditating. All of that was in my power. And so taking your power back and doing what you can.
Yeah. That's a really good example. It reminds me of a episode I had with Rachel Zinman. And she lives with type 1, and she's been doing yoga for many, many years. And she was diagnosed later in life. And she had a statement that still sits with me. It's, we have a constant, there are constants that we can control, especially when we don't think we can, with a disease it just changes. I mean, throughout the day, it seems like it's just a moving target, with our blood sugar. Some days are worse than others. But I love how she put that together, that, there's many things, just like you say, that we can wrap our arms around, we can get support on, that we can make more of a constitution. And just accept that there's going to be some things, the world's going to throw curveballs, and our day is going to throw a curveball. But the stronger we are with that framework, with that foundation, it's just like putting our armor on, putting that armor of good, healthy habits. And so whenever that torch comes flying at us, we can better defend and take care of ourselves. But I really loved how she described that. And that is back in episode 4, if anybody wants to go and listen to Rachel's time that she had with us. Really appreciated that. So can we talk about testosterone?
Sure.
That's an interesting, it doesn't maybe get a lot of attention with women, but it's definitely one of those 4 hormones that plays a part.
Yeah. And this is part of your androgens. So your male sex hormones. And, it has to do with, it gives you energy. It's a piece of your adrenal gland. So it can kind of control that. It controls how much you can build muscle and kind of, your energy throughout the day. When your testosterone starts to dip, I'll start to see, people, again, it's harder to lose weight, it's harder to build muscle, you have low energy. And so things to optimize the testosterone is important. And sometimes you do need a little help with a little bioidentical, I don't believe in the synthetic hormones, but a little bioidentical, like a patch or, a cream or something, sometimes that can really help make all the difference. And then on the other side of that, make sure that your body is using the testosterone and it's metabolizing it and it's detoxing it the way that it needs to. So that's
that makes sense. That all does make sense. So testosterone is, well, like all of our, how they're all kind of matched together with those levels. So like when you're looking at a woman like coming on, perimenopause into menopause, and you just brought up a good point too about the hormone replacement therapy. And obviously I'm a big believer in quality, everything, food, air, people, all that stuff, right? The best we can do is pick the best we can and just surround ourselves with that. And so what is your opinion, and how do you work with women with diabetes? This is a question I get asked a lot. Is it okay for us to be on HRT?
Yes, it is, but you need to work with a licensed practitioner that knows
Mhm.
how to do the dosing, knows how to work with somebody with diabetes. I like to do the patches because you can control the doses.
Mm,
Do a pellet, you're stuck with that dose for 3 months.
yeah.
So I don't recommend a pellet, especially for diabetes, because we want to be able to change things. Hormones are so
Right.
finicky.
Hmm.
If you get the dose wrong, we need to be able to change it. And that means
Yeah.
remove that patch and get you something different. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
can't
Yeah. I like that.
need to work with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the protocol, and I'm gonna let you explain and give us a little bit more information about your hormone puzzle.
Yeah.
And but what about for women with diabetes, or for anyone listening? What is to regain hormone and blood sugar balance? What do you think the first step is?
Yes. Balanced whole food nutrition, low inflammatory foods. That's the main
Start
thing
there.
today.
Yeah.
Start to balance that blood sugar out and to lower your inflammatory response, and helps with the insulin resistance and all of that. So what does
Mhm.
that look like? If it had a mom, or if it came from the ground, you can eat it. If it came from the supermarket shelves, we might look twice at it. So that
Mhm.
means all the fun foods, but I'm sorry, gluten, dairy,
Yeah.
hydrogenated oils, sugar, caffeine,
Yeah.
alcohol, all
Yeah.
of
It all adds up. Yeah.
I go off of an 80-20 rule. 80%
Mhm.
clean whole food nutrition, 20% is fun foods that feed the soul. If you're a drinker, have one glass of wine on a special occasion, don't have a whole bottle, have one cookie, don't have the whole box of cookies. That
I like that. Yeah.
moderation.
Exactly.
And listen to your body too. Some people can't eat, if I eat a super sugary cookie, I feel sick for 2 days. I can't do
Mhm.
it. But I love dark chocolate. So I can have a little dark chocolate here and there, and that's my fun food. So
Yes, I can agree with that. Yes, yes, darker the cacao, better. I've over the years I've gotten darker and darker, so I think I'm up to 85% right now. It takes a little time, but it's so amazing. It just melts in your mouth. It's decadent,
yes.
and
And just
yes, no guilt.
yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
So low inflammatory foods. And then to bring back the hydration piece, this is another
Mhm.
really important piece. Make sure you're drinking clean water. You're filtering your water as you can. A lot of different cities will have different toxins and things
Yeah.
in the tap water. So make sure you're doing filtered water. I always recommend that you look at the color of your urine. We want
Mhm.
pale yellow urine. If it's darker, you're dehydrated. You need to add some water. If it's lighter than that, sometimes I'll have people that they're overhydrating, but
Mhm.
they're washing out all their electrolytes. So if it's
Mhm.
clear on a regular basis, you need to add some electrolytes in. And I love to do like the electrolyte drops from Trace Elements, where I just put a little bit in my water and that's it. To talk about hydration, I
Mhm.
like to do an adrenal cocktail in the afternoons. I have a little adrenal fatigue going on. And so I'll put my electrolyte drops in there. I'll do some coconut water, maybe some orange juice, some cream of tartar, and kind of see if I can get my mineral levels back up and give myself some energy and fuel those adrenal glands. So
Oh, I like that. Yes, I like the sound of that. Definitely.
it's just,
Nice. Yeah. And a a recommendation I've heard, and I kind of follow it for myself, is to drink half our body weight in ounces,
Mhm.
which to me, I still think that's kind of low.
I
It just
do. I do.
depends on the person, and their activity and where they live and all of that.
I do 0.67 times your body weight in ounces each day is minimum. And then if it's hot or you're exercising a lot, you need more than that.
Uh-huh.
And then always look at the color of your urine.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Those are good indicators. Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
That is really good advice. Thank you. Yeah.
And two, one other thing on that one, if you are
Mhm.
not drinking that much water each day, don't go out tomorrow and drink all that water, because you're going to be like a sponge. It's going to roll off the top of you and right out your body into the toilet. So if you are not drinking that much, go slow, 4 to 8 ounces a day, add it onto what
Mm.
you're normally drinking so your cells can absorb and
That
it's not.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that you've probably hear this too, and for women of all ages, probably men too, that they don't want to have to run to the bathroom as much.
Right.
And this is a funny story because I know teachers where that was the rule because they really could not get the breaks, which is sad, right? They would have to really plan there are times to that's
not
detrimental when when you think about that over time. But that's some really good advice about the water. So I'm kind of known as the water. I'm not sure what they call me, the Nazi or something. I'm not real sure what they have a fun name for me, my friends. Well, there goes Melissa again. She's talking about the water. It's a funny joke because it is something I truly believe is important. And from everything from head to toe, it just makes everything, our body needs to be hydrated. It's really important for all the cells. And it helps with insulin sensitivity as well. Exactly. So, and it's a helper when you have high blood sugar. So that's another whole topic that helps, just to kind of eliminate the extra sugar through the kidneys. So, okay. So tell us about that hormone puzzle.
First. So these are all the pieces that you can do today to proactively put your hormones back together and create balance and homeostasis in the body. So a lot of them we've already talked about. So I'll just go through them quickly, but puzzle is an acronym and it stands for P, proper whole food nutrition, U, understanding supplements, Z is zapping stress, Z or Z's, sleep, L is love and encouragement, E is exercise and environment. So these are all the pieces that you can work on today to put your hormone puzzle back together. Whether you have diabetes or not, whether your reproductive years, perimenopause, menopause, it applies to everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a good rule of thumb.
Yes.
And it probably works for men as well.
Yes.
I mean, right? And it's not leaving the men out, because they've got hormones and energy and insulin and all those things that we're talking about that today. Yes, they want to feel good too. So very nice. So what's the easiest way for them to get in touch with you?
Sure.
And to find out more about the hormone puzzle?
For sure. So my website is probably the best place. And so that's coachkela.com, and Kela spelled Kela. So coachkela.com. I was a health coach first before I became a doctor. So that's why that website is. So you can get a lot of my free gifts on there. And I actually have one for this show. It's my cycle optimizing quick start guide, which will teach about the phases of the cycle and what you need to do to optimize your cycle with tips and tricks and nutrition and lifestyle pieces included in there. So
perfect.
Grab that. And then there's also a guide to pregnancy on there. There's a guide to infertility. So a couple different resources for everybody to grab. Social media, my favorite place to hang out is Instagram. So I'm Kela_health coach, as well as hormone puzzle method. So go over the Instagram and see all of our fun posts and stuff like that we do daily. I also run a course for practitioners. It's called Fertility Coach University. So anybody listening that wants to dive into holistic health around fertility, you can go to fertilitycoachuniversity.com and learn all about that.
Oh, that's awesome. That piece I didn't know about. Yes, we need more experts in the field. Yes. People need some support. So I want to thank you. You've been a world of information, and you've helped better explain many of the topics that we are, already kind of bringing up throughout these different episodes. So it's nice just to put that, those facts around it, that direct approach. I really, really appreciate that. And, just so that we can better understand the cycles, our hormones, how insulin is bouncing off of that, and our expectations when we enter, all these different hormonal stages. So knowledge is power. And yes. And I thank you for giving our listeners more hope. You are a good example of that as well. So we appreciate your time here, Dr. Kela.
Thank you, Melissa. It's been my pleasure.
Yes. And we will see you here next week. See you soon. Thank you for listening to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. And be sure to check us out at abundanthealthwithmelissa.com for our free resources. See you next week.